Why do we process the same information differently depending on how it's phrased? The framing effect explained. What it is. The framing effect is when our decisions are influenced by the way information is presented. Equivalent information can be more or less attractive depending on what features are highlighted. Why it happens. The most common framing draws attention to either the positive gain or negative loss associated with an option. We are susceptible to this sort of framing because, in accordance with prospect theory, we tend to avoid certain losses. A loss is perceived as more significant, and therefore more worthy of avoiding, than an equivalent gain. The way something is framed can influence our certainty that it will bring either gain or loss. This is why we find it attractive when the positive features of an option are highlighted instead of the negative ones. Heuristics, or mental shortcuts, might also play a role. Due to the availability heuristic, we favor information that is easily understood and recalled. Options and information that is framed this way are favored over those that aren't. The affect heuristic may cause us to favor information and options that are framed to elicit an immediate emotional response. Research has shown that framing relies on emotional appeals and can be designed to have specific emotional reactions. Example 1: plea bargaining in court. Framing effects have been shown to influence legal proceedings. A 2004 paper concluded that framing has a significant role in plea bargaining in legal proceedings. The author argues that defendants are less likely to accept plea bargains because they view them through a loss frame. Defendants are used to being free, and are being faced with a loss of freedom in a plea bargain. Even if it is a lesser loss than a conviction without a plea bargain, they are more likely to resist bargaining. This advantages prosecutors, as defendants often stand to gain from concessions and bargaining. However, a defendant that has been in pretrial detention for some time is more likely to view prison as the baseline and eventual freedom as a gain, particularly if freedom is possible in weeks or months. So, as a result of pre-trial detention and the gain frame that often ensues, defendants are more likely to accept a plea bargain. Example 2: cancer treatment preferences. A 1989 study examined the influence of framing on patients' preferences surrounding cancer chemotherapy. The results showed that when the probability of living was below 50% and framed negatively as a probability of dying, patients were less likely to choose more toxic yet more effective treatment options. From a broader public health perspective, it is useful to understand the influence that framing has on patients' decisions surrounding treatment. How to avoid it. A 2010 study found that people who are involved with an issue are more motivated to systematically process persuasive messages and are more interested in acquiring information about the product than people who are less involved with the issue. What we can take from these findings is that we should think through our choices concerning an issue and try to become more informed on it. A more specific strategy that falls in line with this more general approach is to provide rationales for our choices. A 1997 study found this reduced framing effects in participants, as it forced them to engage in more detailed mental processing.